This is not a debate. This is a tribunal. On the 8th of April, 2026, hours after a ceasefire was announced, Israel launched 100 airstrikes across Lebanon in 10 minutes. 357 people killed in a single day. Neighborhoods destroyed without warning. Charred bodies found in vehicles at rush hour intersections. A funeral bombed. 3 girls killed in a coastal town. Medics targeted. Hospitals flooded. Israel called it Operation Eternal Darkness. Lebanon called it Black Wednesday. This is not a war of self-defense. This is a pattern. And the dead deserve witnesses who understand what power does when it believes there will be no consequences. So we have gathered, those of us who held power, abused power, suffered under power, to say what we see.
I am Herod, king of Judea, client king of Rome. I know would reveal that the wars are what keep him in office, that without an enemy the coalition collapses and the courts catch up. I was a paranoid king. He is a cornered one, and a cornered king with an air force is the most dangerous creature in the history of governance.
I spent my life telling the world that nonviolence was not weakness, that the moral force of the oppressed could shame the oppressor into change. But shame requires a conscience. A ceasefire was declared. Hezbollah honored it. And within hours, 100 strikes, during rush hour, on civilians driving home from work. This man named his operation Eternal Darkness. He chose that name. Let it be understood. When a leader names his military campaign after the absence of light, he is telling you what he intends for the people beneath it.
I am not a pacifist. I bombed Dresden. I ordered the firebombing of Hamburg. I carry the weight of Bengal. I understand the argument that war requires terrible choices. But I also understand the difference between a man fighting for survival and a man who has made war his survival strategy. This man has been prime minister for the better part of 2 decades. He faces criminal charges for corruption, and even now, his attorneys are negotiating a plea deal while he orders the next strike. His coalition depends on ultra-nationalists who openly call for annexation. He has given his doctrine a name: Super Sparta. A society in a state of permanent military readiness. Eternal war as national identity. I led Britain through its darkest hour, but I never made darkness the policy. Every ceasefire threatens him, not because it fails to protect Israel, but because it succeeds in removing his excuse to govern. I fought wars to save my country. This man fights wars to save himself.
In my country, during apartheid, there was a phrase the security forces used: restoring order. It meant arrests, disappearances, townships sealed, children shot. It always meant the opposite of order. It meant the violent enforcement of a system so unjust that only violence could maintain it. When I hear buffer zone, when I hear security corridor, when I hear changing the face of the Middle East, I hear restoring order. I hear the language of men who destroy the village and call it peace.
I want to talk about what this does to the mind. Not his mind, theirs. Every child in Lebanon who heard those bombs fall on Black Wednesday, every child who saw the ceasefire announced and then watched the sky explode, every child whose classmates screamed on a video call as the windows shattered, that child just received a lesson. The lesson is, agreements mean nothing. Peace is a trick. Trust is what gets you killed. You want to know where the next generation of fighters comes from? You just manufactured them. 100 airstrikes in 10 minutes, and a lifetime of radicalization in every survivor.
I conquered Gaul. 1 million dead. 1 million enslaved. I wrote the account myself, and I made it sound necessary. So I understand the mechanics of what he is doing. 3 buffer zones: Lebanon, Gaza, Syria. He calls it a paradigm shift. We initiate, we attack, we are deep within their territory. That is not a security doctrine. That is an expansion doctrine wearing a uniform. And I should know. I used the same language when I took Gaul from its people and called it civilization. But even I did not bomb a funeral.
I destroyed cities. I erased civilizations. When a city resisted, I killed every living thing inside it. And I stacked the skulls so the next city would not resist. I tell you this so you understand. I am not here to moralize. I am here because I recognize the method. But there is a difference between us. I never pretended. I never called my conquests self-defense. I never bombed a city and then announced peace talks. I never named a massacre security and expected the world to applaud. This man does what I did, but he wraps it in the language of the victim. He takes territory and calls it a buffer zone. He displaces 1.5 million people and calls it a paradigm shift. I was a conqueror. I had the honesty to say so. This man is a conqueror, who has convinced himself he is a guardian.
I ruled Egypt as a woman in a world designed for men. I navigated Rome's power, Caesar, then Antony, not because I was weak, but because I understood the mathematics of dependency. This man is a client king. He holds power because Washington permits it. American weapons, American vetoes, American diplomatic cover. And yet he acts as though he is the emperor, overriding the ceasefire, contradicting the mediator, dragging his patron into deeper war. His patron's allies, the Emirates, the Gulf states, are now under Iranian missile fire because of a war his actions helped provoke. Schools in the Emirates have shut down. Children are learning from home because the skies are not safe. And still he expands. Still he strikes. I knew how to manage a patron. This man has confused his leash for a crown, and the entire region is paying for his delusion.
I am a Jew. I fled Germany in 1933 with nothing. My books were burned. My property was seized. My name was placed on an assassination list. I understood, in my body, in my family, in my history, what it means to be hunted for what you are. And because I understood this, I also understood the danger of becoming the hunter. In 1948, I signed a letter warning that a political movement was growing inside Israel that bore the unmistakable qualities of fascism. I was called a traitor for saying it. I was told, "How dare you, a Jew, criticize the Jewish state?" I dared because I loved my people too much to watch them become what had tried to destroy us. In 1952, they offered me the presidency of Israel. I refused, not because I did not love the idea of a homeland, but because I saw what nationalism does when it is married to military power and unchecked by conscience. 2,700 dead in Lebanon, 376 children dead in Iran, a ceasefire declared, extended, and violated every single day since, buffer zones expanding, villages erased, children killed, and all of it done in the name of Jewish survival. I survived the worst thing the world ever did to my people. And I'm telling you, our survival was never supposed to look like this. Our memory was never supposed to be weaponized to silence the suffering of others. Our pain was never supposed to become someone else's justification for theirs. This man does not speak for the Jewish people. He speaks for power, and he uses our scars as his shield.
One final word. The International Criminal Court has issued an arrest warrant for this man for starvation of civilians as a method of warfare, for the systematic deprivation of objects indispensable to human survival. I was prisoner 46664 on Robben Island. I know what it means when the law identifies a man as a criminal, and the world lacks the will to enforce it. 2,700 dead in Lebanon, over 1.5 million displaced, a third of the entire country. 259 journalists killed since 2023, medical workers targeted, ambulances struck. A ceasefire brokered, extended to mid-May, and violated every day since it began. A flotilla of 68 boats carrying humanitarian aid to Gaza, intercepted by commandos near Crete, because even food is treated as a threat. His own generals warn that settler violence will spark an uprising, and his coalition rewards the settlers. And the man responsible walks free, negotiates a plea deal for his corruption charges, and names his doctrine Super Sparta, eternal war as a way of life. That is not strength. That is the world's failure, wearing his face.
8 witnesses, 8 verdicts. One question the world refuses to answer. Who stops a man the law has named a criminal, when the empire that protects him calls it peace?